Welcome to Conscious Conversations, a place where East meets West, a place where conversations and ideas will challenge your minds, expand your consciousness, awaken your heart, and make you think more deeply about yourself and the world.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Conscious Conversations. We're happy to be back again with you this week. I'm Anthony Profeta, and I'm here with co-host and dear friend, Wes Gordon. How are you doing, Wes?
Good. Very good.
Good. Always happy to be here with you also.
Yes.
Today, we thought we would talk a little bit about the spiritual path, or trying to live a spiritual life. And one thing that I've discovered in my studies, and my studies have varied from east to west and everything in between, is that many of the great teachers talk that this isn't really an easy road to follow. So, for example, Jesus said that narrow is the way which leads to life, and few there are who find it. The Buddha said that no one can walk the path for you, you alone must do the work. And within the texts of Hinduism, two of their great texts, one, the Bhagavad Gita, it says that 1 out of every 1,000 goes searching for God. And out of those few that do, only a rare one truly ever finds him. And in the Upanishads, which is another collection of texts of the Hindus, is that it says the spiritual path is very difficult. It's like walking on the edge of a sharp razor. Not very pleasant sounding.
Not at all.
But now, why do you think it is considered by all of these great beings such a difficult thing to do and a difficult way to live?
Well, it's back to that single-pointed mind concept, right? It's hard to not to be so distracted by everything, to become that focused and actually pursue this train of thought 24/7.
Right.
I think that's where grace comes in from the Christ consciousness, that you can't do this on your own physically as a human.
Right.
You have to have some help.
Yeah, and that is a constant teaching throughout all of these traditions as well, is that there's something that is nudging you, is pushing you, is urging you to grow and move in this direction. Yeah. Now, I began to sort of think and contemplate because, well, in Buddhism, they say that really there's the issue and the difficulty is one of two things. The biggest mistake of the spiritual path, they say, is either not starting or not going all the way. And so then I began to think, well, what is the difficulty? I understand not starting, it's all our excuses and all our hindrances and all the things that we say, well, my life's too busy or this or that. But then I began to think, all right, but once you get on it, then what really becomes the difficulty of it? After you set your foot on the path and realize that, we're always walking a spiritual path, what is it that becomes difficult? And I began to think about, again, the different teachings from both East and West. And it seems that I found they fall into two main categories, which would be really outside challenges and inside challenges. And by inner, I mean our inner obstacles and challenges that we face. And from the outside challenges, I think that, of course, the world itself can become a major obstacle to walking the spiritual path.
Yes.
And, it causes us to stray, and oftentimes not only the world, but things in the world, such as the technology that we now have, can begin to consume our life. You get on your social media and you start looking at Instagram or Facebook. Next thing you know, 2 hours are gone, right, when you could have been, meditating or doing a spiritual practice or doing something to help keep you on the path. But the other thing I find is that also sometimes the community or the people around us can become an issue to keeping steady onto that path and cause us to stray as well. What are your thoughts on those outside influences?
Absolutely. There's so many inner and outer distractions. It's like it's a tangled mess to try to achieve what we think our ego needs us to be spiritual or Christ-like.
Right.
Learning how to surrender or go into a higher level of consciousness, that's not easy.
No, not at all.
I mean, if you're going to fall in the line of what Christ supposedly did, raise the dead, walk on water, heal the sick, blind, make food out of thin air,
right,
that's a level of consciousness that we just don't walk around in normally.
Oh, correct. That's something that takes dedication to attain.
Yeah, that's miracle living. And if that's truly the goal and possible for us to achieve that level of demonstration, you're going to have some sort of discipline. That just doesn't come just by just floating along easy deasy. No, I don't think so. If it was, he wouldn't have made those statements that it's so hard to achieve.
Right. Yeah. I agree with that. And that's why I think that the community or the people we have around us are so important. And in many of the traditions, they say the same thing. In many Eastern traditions, they call it a sangha, and that just means the community of people that you surround yourself with, and that they should be like-minded, because then it helps you to, to stay true to that path, to stay true to that walk. And sometimes, it's difficult because our friends or even our family, they begin to mock us or, think we've gone crazy, or, even people in Christ's time, they would say he was crazy or possessed by a demon by the simple things that he was saying. And so sometimes we get strayed by that. But there's even well-meaning family or friends. They're in their tradition and they're walking their path, and they think if our path is different from theirs, that becomes a problem. So it's not that they're, trying to be mean about it. They think we've strayed and are trying to bring us back to what they think the path should be. And so that can become very difficult. I do know that when I made the choice to leave medical school, many people in my life, family and friends, did think I had like some sort of nervous breakdown or lost my mind. Like, what are you doing? You are on a path that is taking you to, the white picket fence, the house in the yard, the house, the dog in the yard, the family, a secure job that, who wouldn't want that? And then once they hear, you're going to become a meditation teacher, they go, wait, you're leaving all this to do like some yoga stuff?
Right.
So there were definitely people that, both well-meaning and some maybe that were not, that, would mock or make fun or be concerned about, hey, what path are you going on to now? But, that's something that, we all come in to counter with when we do begin to make certain life choices. But in Buddhism, the Buddha himself said that if you can't find someone to walk the path with you, a good, friends or something like that, then it's better to actually walk it alone. Because the friends and the company that you keep, if it's not of like-mindedness, they can begin to sway you or bring you or make you stumble from the path that you're going on.
Absolutely. There's that saying that says what you're seeking is actually seeking you.
Yes, that's Rumi.
Yeah, so that's the power that's drawing you or pulling you. That's outside, or that's bigger than you.
Absolutely.
That desire that's created. So that's, when you have your experience, I had an experience at a young age, that changed my paradigm of what was possible in this reality. And I felt a love so deep in that moment that if I could have that 24/7, that's all I wanted. And that wasn't out here in general.
Right.
This world was very lacking in that love, and still is today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what pulls a lot of people towards you. It's either pain or pleasure, right?
Yep. Sadly, I mean, it's one of those. Hopefully, it's pleasure, but not to the extent that that's overriding your life, because there's should be a balance between those things. But another thing to just keep in mind, that if any of you are walking a certain spiritual path, and you find yourself being, maybe mocked, or not even mocked, but just, friends or family not resonating with the way you're going. That happened to really all the great teachers, and they would often tell their disciples or their students or their followers such things as, they persecuted me, you also will be persecuted.
Right.
They threw me out of temples, they made fun of me. The same thing's going to happen to you. And it's once we do set our mind to say, okay, this is the way I'm going, this is my ideal, this is the spiritual path and truth that I'm going to follow, sometimes that scares people in the sense, well, I should be doing the same thing, and so I'm not. And then they try to make you stumble because they feel, in some ways uncomfortable by it.
Yeah, a lot of people want to test you to find out if you really believe or are really solid in what you say you're saying.
Right. Absolutely.
They'll test you, and family's the worst usually because they're the closest.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, and often, I don't want to say this is a bad thing, but often your family is just really concerned in a way.
Yep.
And sometimes an older generation or an older mindset or someone who's set and stuck and closed-minded in a way, it's not that they're trying to be critical of you. It's just that they feel that they're helping you by realigning you to what they think is the right way you should be moving in the direction you should be living.
Yep.
But I think we need to take a quick break right here. We'll be back after these messages and continue this talk and talk more about some of the other challenges and ways that can make the path easier. So thank you all for listening. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Conscious Conversations. We're here today talking about the difficulty of walking a spiritual path. And me and Wes were discussing, some of the outside challenges, but I also said that there seems to be another category that is, as if the outside challenges weren't enough to overcome. I think the inner challenges are possibly even more difficult, and really the ones that make staying true to your spiritual walk the most difficult thing to overcome, because it's more of a battle with one's own mind and one's own self.
Yes. And
there is a quote that's often attributed to the Buddha, who he said, greater than the one who overcomes 1,000 armies is actually the one who overcomes himself. And I think there's great truth in that, because I often find that we are our own worst enemy. We criticize ourselves, judge ourselves, talk bad about ourselves more than we would probably ever say, even against a friend. And so the inner critic and the mind and the scatteredness of mind and all of these things within us are sort of the bigger challenges to overcome. And one of the challenges, which I don't think many people like to hear, is one that we must die daily.
Right.
And, well, what does that mean? I must die. And, do I lose myself? What does that challenge mean to you? And when you hear that we must die daily?
Well, when I first started out, I thought it was all the things you like in the world.
Right.
Because of the way the church just, presented it to me. So I was really confused with that.
Okay.
But then I started, as I got deeper into mysticism and started, looking under every rock to try to find the answers, because I knew some stuff wasn't there. I started seeing that what he was talking about dying daily could be interpreted a lot of different ways.
Right.
And one of the things is this is supposedly a spiritual universe. So anything you look at temporal around you is not permanent. So that's just a manifestation of some form of spirit at one point.
Right.
You can't be attached to any of that. You get to use them for whatever purposes at the time, but they're not the real world that you're involved in. That's why he constantly said, my kingdom is not of this world, which is very confusing to those that wanted him to become the king.
Right.
So that's part of what you're dying to, is this false representation around you and how it influences you. Because it can distract you into thinking that's more important than the invisible.
Right.
Which to our human mind, that's the way it's supposed to be. So you got to change your thinking.
Right.
You get a reverse way of looking at things, and it's quite challenging to do that. I use that example with you a lot, with the Indiana Jones, when he threw the sand across the thing in that temple show.
Yes.
And there was a pathway there that he didn't trust, but when he seen it, it was there all along.
Right.
But the illusion is real. To have faith is not an easy thing.
Yeah, I believe that was The Last Crusade. That was Sean Connery. That was an excellent part, an excellent movie, by the way. But I resonate with what you're saying. And also, when it comes to dying daily, it's not like we lose our identity.
Right.
It's just more that we're sort of trying to eliminate the amount of selfishness and selfish desires that are in our life. So, for example, for the greater self, whatever you want to call that, the soul self, the spiritual self, the higher self, your divine essence, the spark of divinity within you, your Buddha nature, in order for that greater self to become greater, the lesser self has to sort of be diminished. And the lesser self is we talked about in one of the shows, or maybe even two of the shows, the ego. And we're not talking about the psychological term of ego. We're talking about the spiritual term of ego, in which that, by many of the teachers, meant all the selfishness and your selfish desires and selfish cravings that was all about me, I, mine. All of that needs to be tempered. And so that's what you're trying to sort of lose or die to daily. And that is a difficult thing, because a little selfish ego will pop up its head wherever it can, even in your spiritual path.
Yes.
So as you begin to start meditating, and now you're up to meditating for an hour or two, then the egoic pride starts to say, well, I'm such a great meditator. I can meditate so long. Everybody else can only do like 5 minutes. And so we need to temper that. We need to let that part of us die. that does pop up and, is selfish and prideful and all of those sort of things. Another thing I think that's difficult for the spiritual path is recognizing that when you're walking it, there should really be no desire for reward. No desire for success. I mean, it's a good to have a motivation to say you're striving for an ideal, and to hold that ideal in your mind, whether it be the attainment of whatever you want to call it, enlightenment, awakening, the Christ consciousness, God consciousness, self-realization. Have that ideal in your sight so you have something to strive for. But when we're doing things, there should be no reward. Well, I'm doing this so I attain good karma, or I'm doing this so God blesses me, or I'm doing this for, some sort of, purpose, because then the motivation is wrong.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and that's a difficult thing, I think, people to get out of their mind too, because if you really begin to become mindful and check in on yourself enough, sometimes there's always a little selfish motivation. Well, I'll do this because I'm going to get something back out of it. Even sometimes prayer. People pray only because, well, if I do this, then for something I'm going to get back for the prayers that I'm offering. But even prayer should be offered for no other reason than just out of maybe love for God itself. Right. No desire for that. And another thing is that another difficulty is, you sort of brought it up, the difficulty of keeping a single-pointed mind.
Yes.
Of keeping this mind sort of focused on the ideal, and also have it overcome all the distractions and, all the temptations of the world around us. And so that's why the dedication and the perseverance is also one of the things that is so needed in our spiritual walk. It takes great effort. When you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a discipline.
Right.
There's no way around it.
Yeah. And one of the things that, one of the main reasons why great effort is so needed is because of all the past habits and the past patterns that we've cultivated in our life, and often sometimes even the, the laziness or the excuses that we have in our life. Well, I'm too busy today, or, I got all these other responsibilities to worry about. I'll take care of those things first, and then my spiritual path and my spiritual walk will, it will come later. Mm-hmm. But who knows how long we really have? Sure. And in many Eastern traditions, they say a human birth is precious, and we should use the time wisely. And so that's why I believe that, that this ties in line with that quote from Christ, which says, store up your treasures in heaven. Right. It's good to have possessions. This is a world God created. We should be, there's beauty here. There's wonderful things here. Where I'm not saying don't have possessions or give up everything you have. No, but don't be possessed by them. Right. Enjoy them. Be thankful and grateful that you do have it, but don't let that be your primary motivation. Really store up the good, because when this life does come to its end, whenever our time is, yes, the only thing we take with us is the good that we've done and the love that we shared.
A huge component of this is being a servant.
Absolutely.
That's why he washed their feet. He was giving them an example of, you're never high and mighty in this walk. Right. You're always serving something else.
Yes.
So yeah, that's tough for
many people.
Human nature is like, no, I want mine. Right.
And me. Yeah. And
too bad for you.
Right. Yeah. And we've been trained to be a competitive world.
Yes.
So we're always trying to one up, be better than the Joneses, or, at least keep up with them, if not. And so what do you think are some ways that could make this walk easier?
Meditation.
I'm on par with you with that. I definitely think meditation will definitely make it easier, because you sort of get centered, you find your space and all of that. I also think maybe some humility, recognizing that we do have a human nature. And so we are going to fall and stumble at times, and don't beat ourselves up when that does happen. Right. It's also said within the Gospels that Jesus himself fell 3 times carrying his own cross. And he even needed, at one point, somebody to help him carry it. So, we shouldn't think that, if we stumble or fall, well, we're horrible, or, oh, we messed up. No, just dust yourself off, get up, and just start again. Right. There's a quote by St. Anthony of the Great. That's not the same Anthony as St. Anthony of Padua, for those of you that are Catholic and are very familiar with him. But St. Anthony of the Great, who is considered the father of monasticism, at least Christian monasticism, he said that every day you have the ability to start again. Right. And I think that's a great thing. So if you stumbled yesterday, or if you strayed yesterday, just know that tomorrow's a new page. And so you have the ability to just start and continue your walk in a very new day. I also believe that gratitude is a very wonderful thing to help keep us on our path and to help us see the miracles and the positive things all around us. I also believe watching what we consume. And I don't just mean by what we consume by what we eat, but I mean by what we consume through our senses. So what we're watching, what we're reading,
Yes.
all of those things can be very important to keeping us on a path. And also patience, because this isn't this isn't an easy path. All the great teachers have said it. It's not easy. So have patience. And in the Gospel of Luke, Christ said, by patience, or sometimes it's translated as patient endurance, you actually possess your soul. You gain your soul. So I think that that is a big attribute and characteristic and quality to have as well. And also just remember to keep your ideal in mind, your goal. What is it you're trying to, strive towards, that highest ideal, whether, again, it be the awakening of your Buddha nature, the Christ consciousness, enlightenment or awakening, whatever those things mean to you, just recognize that that is where you're trying to move in the direction to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, there's scriptures about washing of the water of the word, which means reading things that are edifying, that support these beliefs, that bring more stuff into your life that is tangible, keeping your mind in that vein, like good music and
Yes.
relaxing and meditating, the whole 9 yards.
Absolutely. And I think that's where what we consume comes into play. And, whatever your rituals or your practices or whatever path you're walking, a spiritual experience is a personal one.
Yes.
And so, just hold true to that and don't let the world and the ways of the world or even people around you sway you. Whatever you truly believe deeply, strive for that and just continue on. If it's chanting or meditating or praying, whatever it might be, just, try whatever endurance or willpower or whatever perseverance it is you have to stay true to those things, because they will lead you to a beautiful and wonderful final goal. But I think we need to end here for today. I thank you all for watching and listening. Wes, it's always wonderful to be talking with you and to have these conversations with you. I really do enjoy them. And if you're not part of the Conscious Conversations Facebook community, please join and go there. We'd love at the bottom of these videos for you to share your comments. What do you think is difficult about the spiritual path? What do you think is easy about it? Do you even think it's difficult at all? Maybe for you it's very simple. And what tips or tricks do you have to help people on their journey? So again, thank you. We hope that each and every one of your days is truly filled with an abundance of love, happiness, and peace. And we look forward again to talking to you again next week. Thank you all.